So something kind of interesting happened recently. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on 60 Minutes. Now, I don't personally care much about 60 Minutes because I find its hosts uninteresting. I dislike the format. I dislike the tone. I don't really care, you know. But I don't care to watch. That doesn't mean I don't care what goes on there, you know. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was invited to go on 60 Minutes. Now, right off the bat, this is odd because 60 Minutes is like a boring liberal. You know, if you could distill the essence of like liberal smug civility politics down into like an interview show format for old people, yeah, you have 60 Minutes. It's not all terrible. I've seen some segments that seemed all right. It's just I don't. It's not for me. I'm not the target audience. Okay, but they brought Marjorie Taylor Greene on, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is of course a lunatic, and I assume the reason Marjorie Taylor Greene was invited was because 60 Minutes wanted to push their ratings up. Because again, as is the case with basically anything that turns a profit, their primary goal is to make money. Marjorie Taylor Greene is controversial. She is, you know, stupid. Uh, right. 60 Minutes even promoted MTG's appearance beforehand. Ugh, why would you promote her appearance? She looks like a titan. Really, though, I can't show the 60 Minutes interview because, it's 60 Minutes. My channel would get nuked if I played 7 consecutive seconds of it. But we're gonna try, okay? Yeah, the copyright cucks, you know, because I saw portions of it. I saw a good chunk online, and immediately I could see what was wrong. And I want to share it with you, okay? So we've got a tiny little clip here, okay? Now I really want to be careful with the copyright cucking. I hope you forgive me for this. So I'm just going to play the audio. I hope you can tell whose voice is whose. You know what MTG sounds like, right?
Of pedophiles.
Wow, that's a line to open on. Okay, hold on. Let me go back a little bit so we can get some context before that word is used.
We fact-checked before I got to this interview.
So that lady, the one you just heard speaking, is the one with the white hair over here, obviously.
Have you fact-checked all my statements from kindergarten through 12th grade and in college?
The Democrats are a party of pedophiles.
I would definitely say so. They support grooming children.
They are not pedophiles. Why would you say that?
Democrats support, even Joe Biden, the president himself, supports children being sexualized and having transgender surgeries.
Jeez.
Sexualizing children is what pedophiles do to children.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so all of my optics wizards in my community, can we raise our hands and point to whatever was wrong with that exchange? Maybe don't bring a lunatic genocidal fascist onto your program unless you are capable of rebutting the central claims made by the modern GOP in a fashion more convincing than going, wow, okay. She rolled her eyes too. You didn't see that one. It was an epic own. That's to a liberal, like rolling your eyes after a Republican says something stupid is the equivalent of like a 58-page thesis debunking everything they've said. Liberal smugness. That's what I said. It's liberal smugness at its core. You know, they want Marjorie Taylor Greene on for the ratings, for the controversy. But here's the problem, okay? The dinosaurs over at 60 Minutes are, well, they're smug liberals. And like smug liberals, they're not capable of responding to outright fascism. They're not. This is a historical problem, okay? Hardly specific to 60 Minutes or even modern-day Democrats. The belief that like sort of institutional confidence, civility, smugness, education will prevail over blind, stupid hatred like what Marjorie Taylor Greene represents. The belief that things will work out or that people will understand. This is the exact thing that led Hillary Clinton to lose against Trump. You remember? I remember. I saw those debates where Donald Trump would go on these insane tirades and Hillary Clinton's main weapon against him was to smugly roll her eyes and go, well, that was dumb, basically. And is Hillary Clinton a very intelligent and highly educated woman? Well, yeah. Is she way smarter than Trump and probably going to be right on almost any one-to-one issue that she and Trump disagree on? Yeah. Does that help at all? No, obviously not. If liberal smugness was capable of defeating fascist rhetoric, then we wouldn't have had fascism. We wouldn't have even had this problem. That's too glaring of a weakness. Trust me, the smugness of liberals is the worst thing in the world to be vulnerable to because it's everywhere. It's impossible to escape. Certainly when you're watching 60 Minutes. And anyway, they bring Marjorie Taylor Greene on, and the entire interview reeks of this. You know, there's this limp-wristed, ineffective attempt at holding her to account for the abominable and endless list of shit she said in the most liberal fashion imaginable, which is fact-checking old statements. Can you imagine a worse way of trying to... Imagine you have Donald Trump sitting in a chair right in front of you, and you pull out a list, and you're like, okay, well, you said something here that was pretty controversial. Do you really think that... Do you think this is a good way to challenge their statements? No, it doesn't work. You have to directly and aggressively take their narrative, take the focus of their point, and attack them on it. You have to be the aggressor. Marjorie Taylor Greene in this interview should have left halfway through because she got flustered and upset after being called an idiot multiple times. Just ruthlessly mock her. You can't beat a fascist by smugly fact-checking them. If facts could beat them, then they wouldn't get powerful ever, because they're always wrong. We should know this. You have to be stronger than them, and you have to be stronger than them in a way that's smart. You have to know how to press their buttons appropriately. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a smart woman. She's pretty easy to walk around, you know. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not exactly a rhetorical, like juggernaut here. We're not exactly I would from what I've seen of them both, I think Donald Trump would be way harder to deal with in an interview than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not bright. Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't even very charismatic, at all. She doesn't have any of the defensive mechanisms that Donald Trump has, like, say, comedy or a breezy inability to get flustered, he does sometimes, but not that often. She can get flustered. She can get upset. She's not funny. And they bring her on this relatively easy meet, and they flub. And ratings for 60 Minutes have gone down. Apparently, the ratings they got for this one were abominably low. Hold on, 60 Minutes ratings. There were articles on this. Whoa, look at that. Oh my God. At the top of Google's audience rating summary, I assume this is biased towards recent reviews. Look at that. This happened 1 day ago. See, the overall review on IMDb is 7.5, but this is biased towards recency, I assume, and you can see the results. People are not happy. And what's more, by the way, this isn't even like a ratings victory for the network, because Republicans aren't interested in watching Marjorie Taylor Greene sit there and deal with a smug liberal for 60 minutes. They don't care. They're not going to be brought in by this. They don't give a shit. You sure that's not Republican review bombing? No, trust me. No. The response here has been pretty negative. Here's MTG doubling down and calling all Democrats pedos. Yeah, of course. This isn't news. This right here, I'll say it again, Democrats, the party of pedophiles, they've been saying this nonstop for years now. This isn't like radical rhetoric. This is the mainstream Republican talking point, and they couldn't deal with it. All they did was give her a platform to confidently state shit like this, so that the 60 Minutes bitch could look at her and go like, well, that's not very civil of you to say. Wow, she says, being dragged to the train yards to be sent to the death camp. Wow, rolls eyes. That's not correct. I fact checked your Führer speech from 37, and I gotta say, I found a couple of problems with it. Like, CBS 60 Minutes drew 6.7 million total viewers, still far too many, and a 0.3 demo rating, making it second smallest audience of the season and a demo low. Interesting. People just didn't care for it. It was a pathetic attempt to drive up ratings, and the only consequence of it was a dramatic loss in competence for the 60 Minutes crew. Oh yeah, there's Ollie London, the person who tried to transition into a BTS member with surgeries to make him look Korean. And then he didn't do that. And then some right-winger came up to him and offered him money. And now he's like an anti-trans activist. Gender madness. Again, this guy tried to look Korean. It wasn't a gender thing. He's a white guy, and he tried to get surgeries to look like a Korean guy. Okay. You all get the point that I'm going on about, right? Viewership for Sunday, 2nd of April, night's episode featuring the controversial U.S. representative from Georgia dropped 28% from the week before. Wow, that's really bad. Okay, now listen to the way they were promoting this this appearance from MTG. Days before the episode aired, the show's account tweeted, Georgia Republican Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, nicknamed MTG, isn't afraid to share her opinions, no matter how intense and in your face they are. She sits down with Leslie Stahl this Sunday in 60 Minutes. Wow, that's an interesting way to frame genocidal fascist lunatic. This this young enterprising World War I veteran isn't afraid to share his opinions. In fact, he was arrested for a beer hall putsch. Now, no, we're here to take on his attempt. Like it's insane. Now, a huge portion of this is just money grubbing from the network, but I maintain that this is one of the clearest examples we've had in a while of an ideological inability for liberalism to deal with fascism. This is why it's so essential that leftists be leading the conversation when it comes to how to respond to fascist rhetoric, because liberal institutions are filled with dinosaurs who have for decades relied on smugly fact-checking the dumb right. You know, these are all people who are veterans of the George Bush era, where being a liberal in America meant drawing pictures of George Bush Jr. looking like a monkey, and anytime he would stutter or like mispronounce something on TV, you would make fun of it for an entire news cycle. Smugness and fact-checking and technically correcting them are, and a lot of these people, by the way, supported the invasion of Iraq. So just so you know, a lot of these institutional liberal types aren't even principally against the worst crimes of the Bush administration. They supported them. They were only against Bush in an ephemeral, surface level way that never extended beyond, haha, we're smarter than he is. You know, all the Bush era liberal criticism was just, he's dumb and we're from a coastal city. And that's it. And a lot of those people, when that was going on, were in their 40s. And now they're in their 60s. They're still here. They haven't gone away. They're the same people. And we have a rise of real fascism, of people who will just say to your face, yeah, I think all Democrats are pedophiles. And they have nothing to say. Nothing at all. Just an eye roll. It's disgusting. Doesn't the end of history liberal brain rot have any place in the analysis of liberal incompetence in this respect? Well, they're intertwined, because a belief that the wheels of the cosmos will right in favor of sensibility and sanity, that is a kind of end of history mentality. Liberals who believe that, you know, oh, old Donnie and the GOP, oh yeah, they're crude, they're loud, they're crazy, they're wrong. But, you know, the universe corrects in favor of the right, which it only does if you fight for it. You know, the long arc of history may lean in our favor, but that's not because we just crossed our arms and let it fly. It's because people have lived and died pushing it in that direction. And as much as the long arc of history has generally trended towards, you know, liberalism, progressivism, whatever else, that was by no means like a passive process. And there are millions of people actively trying to push it the other way. You have to work. You have to continue that fight. Vaush literally just Control-V what he saw Jon Stewart, a liberal, say. That's true. I get all of my arguments from Jon Stewart. I'm honored to share arguments with Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart is a liberal, but you know what he also is? He's one of the good ones. He's been one of the good ones for a long time. Jon Stewart ain't no average liberal. Jon Stewart ain't cut from the cloth of these 60-minute liberal bitches. No, Jon Stewart is a true, honorable liberal. Somebody worth listening to. He's no socialist, but he's a good guy. What about Trevor Noah arguments? I don't watch Trevor Noah. Jesus. John Oliver is better. John Oliver is also very good. Don Jr. posting pictures of the judge's family on social media. Yeah, so on a final point here. So liberals, Smugly fact check this. Son of the former president just posting pictures of the family of the judge. Okay? Roll your eyes at this. How uncouth. How uncivil. Yeah, get Don Jr. on 60 Minutes, quick. I looked at some of your statements. While you really think that insurrectionists should hold these corrupt, deep state, pedophilic judges and their families to account, yeah, I do think that, actually. Okay. Great. Is that even a little legal? It's legal. Free speech. I don't think this is an ideological problem with liberals. John Oliver, Jon Stewart, Trevor Noah are very punchy. It's just an issue with civility bullshit. Who do you think pushes the civility bullshit? Not all liberals are the same, but don't put them all in the same camp. Jon Stewart and John Oliver are standouts. They are so far head and shoulders above not only other liberals, but the entire Democratic establishment. Like, John Oliver and Jon Stewart have far more in common with, like, Justice Dem, like, quiet socialism, like, shit, than they do with the mainstream Democratic Party in terms of messaging, leadership, and direction. Trevor Noah, I don't like, whatever. But they are not like cut from the same cloth here. Overwhelmingly, if you take a look at the Democratic Party and a bunch of these media institutions, they're helmed by people who are dinosaurs. They've been around since the Clinton years. They're incredibly smug and entitled, and they don't think the world is going to fundamentally change. They're also very rich, and that tends to shelter people from a feeling of immediacy when it comes to dealing with the consequences of fascist ideology. Vaush, when are you going to fact check a Goebbels speech live? Yeah, honest to God, like, I feel like that's, like, keep in mind, by the way, back when Goebbels was making speeches, there were liberals in Germany fact-checking them. That's not a joke. We don't hear about them, the liberal media institutions in the Weimar Republic who critiqued the rise of Nazism. Do you know why? Because they they didn't stay around long enough to share their stories. Not a joke. Where do you think, oh yeah, hear that story, Yeah, here's my tale. I wrote an autobiography. I was a liberal critic in the Weimar Republic. And then I survived the Nazi regime and wrote a book. No, they didn't. Agree, Vaush, but what's wrong with Trevor Noah? I don't watch him. I just don't like him. I don't like him. I don't think he's funny. I don't like him. Yes, I saw Anna Kasparian in a persistent willingness to be contrarian or to argue with the people in her comments who disagree. Yeah, Anna Kasparian. I disagree with Anna when she says it's important to interview people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It sets a terrible precedent if journalists start avoiding interviews with politicians over platforming concerns. It might start with a politician you don't like, but it will definitely eventually include some you do like. Another brain-dead, milquetoast, elitist, money-driven take. I have to platform Nazis and non-Nazis alike. It's an insane ideology. Marjorie Taylor Greene might be a loon, but she's an elected loon with power over national policy. Refusing to talk to her doesn't make her magically disappear. I actually agree with Anna here, by the way. Do you know how hypocritical it would be if I was to say we shouldn't platform far-right people? Like, what do you think I've done? Obviously, my problem isn't with the platforming. My problem is the way in which the platforming was done. Those who didn't like Stahl's handling of the interview, I hear you on some parts, but did you watch the full interview? She began it by rattling off a bunch of insults towards Marjorie Taylor Greene, called her out. So I fully disagree on this. I think she handled it very poorly. I think even the opening and the way she handled that and the insults and the blah 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 came across in the same performative smug liberal sense with no like fundamental challenge. Like no Republican would watch that and go like, oh wow, Marjorie Taylor Greene really looked put out there. It was more like, okay, yeah, so here's like the loony Democrat smears right off the bat. It's also really dumb to open the interview with insults because opening the interview, you want to open with charity so that you get them to drop their defenses. Like that's really, you guys have noticed that when I talk to Nazis and white supremacists on my channel, I open really nice to them. And the reason for that is because if you immediately open with like a bunch of insults, anybody from their camp who's watching will immediately write me off. They'll go like, okay, well, he was never gonna listen, so why should I listen to him? And B, if you're nice to people, they're usually a bit more willing to be open, or at least like they're not super defensive with the arguments they make, which means you can get their asses even harder later. It's just good strategy. But the 60 Minutes bitch, Stahl or whatever, is not used to adversarial interviews with fascists, clearly. Yeah, you go feral only when you're given the... Sometimes people, when they watch me, they say, well, you were too nice to that guy. I'm not nice or mean to people on my stream based on how I feel about their politics. That's not That's not the factor that like determines how they get treated. From my perspective, it's just how do I match the tone of the conversation and what way of engaging with this maximizes the likelihood that I can achieve my conversational goals here, you know? Being mean to somebody who's not being mean to you will almost always come across as an optical loss. You were towards Mel? You're right. I opened being really mean towards Mel. And you know what? A lot of people didn't like how I handled myself in that convo. Because even though I was right on every point, people felt like I opened by being really mean to an uwu trans girl, which I was, and she deserves it. She's terrible. But yeah, I had to have a talk with all of you about how to not infantilize women after that. But, you know, obviously if I'd opened a bit more conciliatory, we could have instructed all of you on how deserved being mean to her was. It's a process.